Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the, let's say, first panel discussion today regarding the methane from farm to milk. And I'll just briefly introduce myself. I'll be the moderator today for this session. My name is Saša Krstović, and I'm a professor in animal nutrition from University of Novi Sad, Serbia. And today we will discuss methane in terms of management practices on farms. And today we have 6 people here, some of them farmers, some of them are advisors. And okay, this is better. You hear me better this way. And I will just start with our first guest. Our first guest is Peter from Belgium. He's a Flemish farmer. And Peter, could you tell us a bit about your farm, about your experience with methane? Or we will play a video first. What is the procedure here? The video, okay, enjoy.
Ik ben Peter Bouwens, we zitten hier in Sint-Lieve-Zessen, voet van de Vlaamse Ardennen. We hebben een melkveebedrijf met 125, 130 melkkoeien. Een heel bedrijf, de oppervlakte is een 85, 86 hectare. Dat staat een teken voor de voeding van de dieren. We proberen zoveel mogelijk kringloop na te streven, dan een aantal dieren, mest, grondvoeding, dat het kringloop rond is. Dat vinden wij heel belangrijk. De grote uitdagingen, 1, politiek, het vermeende stikstofdossier. En 2, zijn de eerste slachtoffers van de klimaatverandering. Vorig jaar was het extreem nat. En nu zijn we de laatste weken dat we naar een droogte gaan. De extremen nemen wel toe. En er wordt wel een uitdaging om met je grondbodem om te gaan, de bewerking. Voor zoveel mogelijk de doorlaatbaarheid van te veel vocht of vocht behouden bij droogtes. Wat is vandaag het probleem dat er in de hangbare landbouw te veel dieren op een bedrijf volgens de grond zit. Dat er een mestafzet gebeuren, voer aankopen, kunstmest. Wij zeggen nee, vroeger in dieren groeien in grond, niet omgekeerd. We zijn gestart met afbouw van het maisareaal, minder mais in rondsen, geen soja niet meer. Gewoon gras is de basis met grondstoffen, geplette granen, in zelftelen, herfst, zwarte haver, die superfood is voor de dieren. Vuilbonen met tarwe, dat zijn de krachtvoeders, daar we zelf mengsels mee samenstellen. En we zien gewoon sinds dat we dat doen, dat die melkproductie van die koeien gewoon stijgt. Daarnaast zijn er ook voordelen voor het dier, grote voordelen zelfs. Naar de gezondheid van het dier toe, naar de langleefbaarheid van het dier, de vruchtbaarheid van het dier. En daarnaast ook de gezondheid van de mens, met de omega-3 vetzuren. Sinds 2010 zijn we gestopt met ploegen. We zijn volledig ploegloos. En als we nu zien resultaten die we bereiken door niet meer te ploegen, dat is onvoorstelbaar. Bij droogtes, zoals we nu aan het zien zijn, dat de planten aan het vocht kunnen. En 2, bij natte periodes, zoals vorig jaar, waar dan de gewassen enorm diep wortelen, kunnen we ook onder nitraten.
Great. Yeah, this video was really a great introduction for the Peter's farm. Peter, I see that you're already applying a lot of strategies for methane mitigation and climate adaptation in Flemish region. Can you tell us a bit more about other Flemish people, farmers that are dealing with these issues? How are their experience? What do you think, in your opinion?
Oké, voilà. Wat is wat zie ik in de Vlaamse landbouwsector? Dat er heel weinig boeren vandaag mee bezig zijn met de methaanreductie. En de Vlaamse contraien is vandaag vooral het probleem met het stikstofakkoord. Nee? Nee? Nog luider? Nog? Oké, ja, oké. Oké. Opnieuw? Oké. Nogmaals. In Vlaanderen zijn er vandaag heel weinig mensen bezig met methaanreductie. Het is vooral de stikstof die vooral speelt nu in de Vlaamse contraien, net als in Nederland. Het is meer zo'n regel van methaanreductie is weer iets dat er bovenop komt. Maar wij staan anders in heel die discussie.
Okay, thank you. Do you see it as a pressure, opportunity, or maybe another buzzword from the outside, talking about methane?
Ik zie het vooral als een kans, zeker in we zijn, hetgeen dat ik in de film zeg, we zijn de eerste slachtoffers van het klimaatverandering. Ik denk dat mijn mening is dat we iedereen voor zijn deur moet vegen. Dan is het overal proper. Als we altijd zeggen, eerst moet de rest het doen, dan gaan wij volgen. Wij nemen onze verantwoordelijkheid en doen. We dragen ons steentje bij.
Well, it's really great to see that there's awareness about this among Flemish partners, and they see it as an opportunity. But we'll talk more about this later on. And now I will switch to Joe. Joe, hello, good morning. I see that you also have a video prepared, so let's see it first, and then we will discuss more.
I'm Joe Wannop. I'm a dairy farmer from Morecambe, which is the northwest of England. I farm with my dad, mum and my brother James. We're currently milking 550 Holstein cows. Our herd averages 12,500 litres at 4.3 fat, 3.4 protein. We are an Arla farmer owner. We're on a constituents contract, which is fat and protein, with Aldi. We're a very proud farming family. The family have been on this farm since 1972, and we're just constantly pushing towards better efficiency, better cow comfort, and just try to be as efficient as possibly can. Our cows being efficient is the same as any other business. If our cows are efficient, we can be efficient, which drives a margin over purchase feed, which also helps keep the business going from day to day. If our farm's not sustainable, then the younger generation can't carry on what we've already started. We're currently feeding the cows first and second cut silage, which also consists of straw. They're on rape tech, whole crop, which is oats and wheat, and then a custom blend, which includes Lintec, and then we also have sodium and a specific on-farm mineral. We're trying to achieve as much as we possibly can with the feed that we've got to get the yield and the fat and the protein. Our breeding policy, we've just started changing it at the moment. We've gone down the genomic route, so everything that's calving in has all been genomically tested. We're using a lot more sex semen on the right cows. We haven't used conventional Holstein semen for a long time. We've been feeding Lintec for 6 or 7 years. The main reason we got suggested through 4 farmers to put Lintec into the diet was fertility. Our preg rate was down at 16, 17, and then we've got it up to 35. Our conception rate was down at 30, sometimes in the 20s, and we're now sat at mid-40s, and that also helps drive our efficiencies.
In the time I've been working with the One-Ups, there has been massive progress both in terms of infrastructure, but also in terms of cow performance, cow health and fertility. So with everything we do here at the One-Ups, the one thing that we're trying and the one thing that we are focused on is feed efficiency and maintaining consistent feed efficiency. So the big plus and the big bonus that Lintec gives us is that ability to keep that feed efficiency consistent week in, week out. So when we're looking at the diet and we're looking at particular times when we've had challenging forages, so if we think back to 2024, where here in the northwest we struggled with the weather, we actually found across first, second, third and fourth cuts, our IT3 levels were the lowest they have been in the last 4 to 5 years. So if we hadn't had Lintec in which to be able to increase the IT3 level, we'd have been struggling. Currently we will be running around 1.48 to 1.52 feed efficiency. And we know at those levels with that comes that methane reduction and that methane benefit. So what we are finding is that over the years, as we've increased our feed efficiency, we've had a significant reduction in our methane production as well.
Okay, lovely video and great farm with great numbers, really. So, Joe, can you tell us a bit more about methane, implementing methane, different management practices in your farm? Is it a key issue or it's something secondarily that you're doing there? What is your experience here about this?
Methane isn't really the primary thought process in when we're feeding the cows. It's just something that when we become more efficient and make the cows more efficient, you automatically reduce your methane.
Right. So we see that our farmers are really aware about methane issues. We will see how in practical terms this reflects on their farms. Samuel, hello, Samuel. You are a farmer that works within the APBO, right? The cooperative of farmers that are producing milk for Bell, is that right? And the question for you is the same. What are your experiences so far?
Bonjour. Donc effectivement, aujourd'hui je représente la PBO, donc c'est juste pour préciser une association de producteurs de lait qui a été créée en 2012. Et donc aujourd'hui, on a un cahier des charges qui est propre à notre association et qui prend en compte les émissions de méthane. On travaille sur ce sujet-là. Et donc notre objectif, c'est de réduire l'empreinte globale des exploitations à PBO pour satisfaire aussi les demandes de notre acheteur. Voilà.
Thank you, Samuel. Unfortunately, this doesn't work for me, but I assume for others it works. So you've heard what Samuel had to say. I'm more or less already introduced into Samuel's work, but can you tell us what kind of reactions do you get from the farmer? What kind of reactions do you get from the farmers when you talk about methane issues and methane-related management practices?
Alors, c'est des choses dont on n'était pas habitué à parler et qu'il faut aujourd'hui qu'on prenne en main. Et donc, il a fallu faire de la pédagogie, expliquer le sujet. Et donc, on a démarré je veux juste retracer un petit peu pour bien comprendre, c'est qu'on a un cahier des charges qui était bien spécifique à notre OP, qu'on a mis en place en 2018 avec déjà un début. On a commencé avec la réduction de l'arrêt des aliments avec OGM. Donc, notre cahier des charges, c'est alimentation sans OGM. On a également des vaches qui vont au pâturage, donc depuis 2018. Ensuite, en 2020, on a mis en place des CAP 2ER pour déjà faire un état des lieux des exploitations à un instant T. Et on s'intéresse sur le méthane depuis 2023. Et donc, progressivement, les adhérents étaient réticents. Et la manière dont on a procédé, c'est qu'on a mis en place des leviers optionnels pour que chaque exploitant puisse choisir des leviers pour améliorer ses émissions de méthane. Et donc ça a été progressif. Aujourd'hui, un exploitant qui veut améliorer ses émissions, il va pouvoir progresser. Et on est en partenariat avec notre laiterie qui nous finance quand on améliore nos résultats.
Okay, yeah, that makes total sense because if farmers see that they get profit from there in any way, not just economically, but in technical terms and more using more efficiently the feed and everything else, that this is good for them, right? So let's see how these things work in practice. So Samuel, can you tell us the practices that you already done on your farm or within your APBO network? Can you tell us more about these? And were they successful? I believe they were, but just a few details about that for the audience and everyone here.
Donc en 2018, à partir de 2018, les agriculteurs, l'organisation de producteurs a créé son propre cahier des charges avec 100% des producteurs qui ont une alimentation non OGM, 100% des producteurs qui ont des vaches qui ont accès au pâturage 150 jours par an au minimum. Donc ça, c'était la première étape. Ensuite, en 2020, il y a eu les CAP 2ER qui ont été faits. Donc les CAP 2ER, c'est une première année. La première année, on fait un état des lieux de l'exploitation à un instant T. En fait, ça nous donne l'empreinte carbone de l'exploitation. Il y a des leviers d'amélioration, des axes d'amélioration qui sont décidés avec un conseiller. Et pendant 5 ans, l'exploitation met en place ces leviers d'amélioration. Donc ça peut être augmenter la production de lait par vache, diminuer l'ajovelage des génisses, changer les méthodes d'épandage de lisier, par exemple des effluents, augmenter les mètres linéaires de haies, le maintien des prairies. Et au bout de 5 ans, on refait le même on refait une photo de l'exploitation et on voit les améliorations. Donc ça, c'est ce qui a été fait à partir de 2020. Et depuis 2000, donc on a commencé ensuite en 2023 à travailler sur le méthane. Donc les premiers travaux en partenariat avec Bell. Et depuis le 1er juin 2025, on a fait évoluer le cahier des charges avec des leviers optionnels. Donc ce sont des leviers qui sont sur la base du volontariat et qui sont rémunérés. Donc on a un levier, par exemple, c'est la couverture des sols. Donc il faut couvrir les sols en permanence. Il y a un deuxième levier sur la zéro utilisation de soja non OGM, zéro utilisation d'huile de palme. En fait, c'est un levier zéro déforestation, on appelle ça. On a un deuxième levier sur l'autonomie par les fourrages. Donc en fait, quand on a une proportion d'herbes qui est élevée sur l'exploitation et dans les rations, on améliore notre pourcentage et on vient chercher des euros, en fait, obtenir des euros. On a un autre levier sur l'autonomie par les concentrés. Il y a des gens qui produisent chez eux sur l'exploitation des pois, des protéagineux, en fait, qui les valorisent sur l'exploitation. On a ensuite un autre levier, c'est sur les mètres linéaires de haies, ramenés à la surface fourragère dédiée à l'atelier lait. Et on a aussi deux leviers sur les aliments réducteurs de méthane, donc entre autres le lin. Et on a un autre levier sur le bovaer, ça c'est les deux leviers sur les aliments réducteurs de méthane. Et on a un dernier levier sur la mesure du méthane, donc ça c'est un travail qu'on a fait avec Ecosens, où tous les mois on vient transmettre à Ecosens sur une plateforme notre production de lait par vache à la date demandée. Il y a une analyse de lait qui est faite et ça nous donne tous les mois nos grammes par litre, le méthane en grammes par litre. Et ça permet de faire des liens, c'est concret en fait, parce que ça permet de mettre en lien les rations et les émissions de méthane, la productivité et les émissions de méthane. Donc c'est vraiment quelque chose de concret et d'intéressant.
Well, thank you, Samuel, for very, very extensive answer. It really helped me understand what you're doing there and probably to the audience as well, because you've been managing very different things, very different levels, pesticides, soil, roughage, forage, at the same time decreasing methane emissions is really outstanding. And now I want to move to Solveig. Solveig, you're from Valorex. And animal nutritionist, same as I am. And you've worked with Samuel as well during implementation of these measures. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, about the product, your role in Valorex, and the results you had with cooperation with Samuel?
Yes, sure. Thank you. So I am Solveig Mondowski. I'm working at Valorex in the Research and Innovation Department, and I'm in charge of ruminant topics, and in particular in charge of conducting the scientific work. The results will be presented here. So, as you say, Samuel, we use the pressure cooked linseed to reduce methane, but let's say the strongness of this product is not only reducing methane, it's also all the benefits it brings to the farmers and the cows. So at a zootechnical dose, which is around 0.5 kilo per day and per cow, we can have benefits such as more milk per cow, a better health with less ketosis, less metritis. Also, as you said also, Joe, better fertility and better reproduction performances, with a shorter calving interval or transgenerational effects. If you feed the mother, then the daughters will have their first calf earlier. And also with Tradiline, the cows live and produce longer. So it's very, it's full of benefits. And I would say methane is only the topping of the cake, which is also very important, but it's not for that Tradiline is sold today. But what is really Tradiline? It's, if you can move forward, Olivia, thank you. It's a precise linseed selection combined with a unique process to get the best of the seed, which guarantee a high fat content. As André Banang said this morning, bring fat to the cow is a good way to reduce methane. And in particular, Tradiline brings a high omega-3 content with a high digestibility to make the cow valorize it very well, and we also bring efficient lignans to the cow. And Tradilin is sold with different brand names. You will hear today speaking about Tradilin, Easylin, Lintake, all the same product, but different names across Europe in particular. And we have 8 articles to show that Tradilin has a positive effect on methane mitigation. And we did like a small meta-analysis work on this data to take into account the dose of Tradilin that was fed to the cow, and to see what methane decrease we can reach. And we reached 9% reduction at a zootechnical dose. But that's what science says. But now what is interesting is to see if we can find again these results on the fields. And that's what we did with the APBO producer, as Samuel said. And we tested Tradilin in some of those farms, and we observed that we reduced methane from 9% as well. Results went from 7 to 11% reduction. And also, the farmers observed more milk, up to 2.5 kilos more milk per day per cow, and positive economic results, which is very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting indeed, Solveig. Yeah, well, we see that Tradilin is not only about methane reduction. It's definitely about entire farm management system and cow health and more production. So this for farmer definitely means more money, yeah, in the end, because they're not producing this for popcorns. And I killed another of these, but I will try to reach out for the next one, because I have a next question to Peter. Peter, we saw from the video that you're dealing with grass, using forage, using linseed, right, for at your farm. And can you tell us what led you to use this model of nutrition and model of farm management on your farm?
We hebben in 2011 de omslag gemaakt van een mais rijkrantsoen met soja naar een gewoon grasrantsoen. De reden was vooral de gezondheid van de dieren. Dat vonden we heel belangrijk. En wat zien we uiteindelijk? Dat we door die omschakeling, dat we daar meer gras in die rantsoen, dat we het dier respecteren, dat die productie omhoog gaat, dat we lang leefbaarheid van de koeien en de vruchtbaarheid van die koeien. We zijn versteld wat we kunnen bereiken samen met Tradilin.
Yeah. Okay. It seemed like there was more, but no, because of the translator. But okay, thank you, Samuel, very much for your question. So we see another application of linseed, and as André from Wageningen said today, it is very important, the fatty acid composition of the diet. It really influences the health of a cow, also methane reductions, and another fecundity, fertility, and milk composition. So I want to ask Pauline. Hello, Pauline. You're an agronomist at Herbivore, right? It says like something like that,
no.
but
More kind of a nutritionist.
Nutrition is great. So most of us are nutritionists here. Great. It says here that you're advising farmers on grass and regenerative systems. That sounds very, very great. You're doing God's work. Thank you. And please tell us what are your experiences with farmers?
So the farmers I work with, mainly we are trying to build systems that brings good margins, which is the main goal of a farm. So I help them design pasture-based or grass-based systems that provide that. And the additional benefits of that is also to help them get a workload that can be livable for them, because in France we are at a turning point in demographic for farmers. Lots of them are retiring, not so many of them are carrying on, so it has to be profitable and it has to be livable as well. So that's something that we are currently working on. And as for the grass-based systems, we try and work on designing systems that provide more milk per cow and per acre, which is something that we can still improve in grass management, mainly through rotational grazing. Yeah.
Okay, this is amazing what I hear here. And can you tell us, are there farmers skeptic when you come first time at a farm, if that's the thing you're doing? Yeah, and explaining what are the benefits for them. What are your impression about their opinion on this?
Yeah, most of times farmers I work with, there's a little bit of bias because if we work together, it is that they are already interested in those topics and those kind of systems. So mainly I'm a bit biased in my point of view, but they are definitely skeptic about tackling environmental issues first. They are just bosses, they want their company to be profitable, so we are working on levers that do help them get better margins and better revenue. And as a second driver, environmental goals, ecological goals are really there, and that's important to them, but that's not the main driver.
Okay, so economics as well, right?
First,
always. Of course, always. Okay, moving back to Joe. Joe, can you, you said you have some kind of cow-centric management on your farm, right? Let's call it. Yeah, it is cow-oriented. So can you tell us to what extent this helps methane reduction at your farm? Your management system.
To make the methane less, we feed, yeah. So our system, we're housed 365 days a year. We feed that cow to its best potential to get the most out of it, to help with what we've already talked about, is keeping the methane low, which also helps your profit and margins. You can't expect farmers to want to do it without good profits and margins, because it's the job's tight anyway. And at the current milk price falling, it makes it even harder. But if you can do that with being profitability in your company and making the cow profitable and more efficient, it's automatically doing it.
Okay, makes total sense to me, probably to everyone else. Okay, we saw some of the solutions on the field within farmers, and advisors said their word. They're helping them. I'd like to ask a question to James. James, can you hold the mic, please? Yeah. You're working on map of, I think I pronounced it well, AG or AG. Yeah. It's probably shorter from agriculture. Yeah. Okay. And, it says that you're making farmers connect practices with carbon footprints. Yeah. Can you tell us more about yourself, what you're doing, and how do you do this?
Okay, so broad question. Well, I'm a vet by training, so I worked in practice for 10, 11 years, and then I was one of the founder members of Map of Ag back in 2007. And what we did is we found that the time we set up the business, some of the retailers in the UK were looking to connect much more closely with their farmers. And we were lucky to be in the right place at the right time, and we picked up one of the contracts with one of the big retailers in the UK. And our remit at the time was to try and improve the herd health across, at the time it was 320 farms, supplying into Sainsbury's, is one of the second biggest retailer in the UK. We've done that, we're still doing that for them actually, and where that has led us is that, yes, the herd health is still incredibly important. So we're still very involved in the herd health, very involved in the fertility. But the way everything has changed is that the retailers and the processors are talking far more about sustainability now. And the herd health has a big part to play in that sustainability. But we would be doing a lot of work directly with farms for, now it would be Sainsbury's, we do a lot of work with Arla. Most of the retailer groups, we service to some extent. And we've been involved with trying to engage the farmers with, it's not just methane, it's the whole of the greenhouse gas emissions intensity. So things that Joe's talked about, and also Peter, around feed efficiency is incredibly important. Fertility is obviously very important, because if you have very good fertility and you have low age at first calving, then you're going to have less cows producing the same or more milk. So there's automatically a reduction in methane to do with that. So broadly, that is a big question.
Well, thank you so much. I have a question also for you. One, it says, how can you explain how management choices actually influence total emissions? So you said it's not only about emissions, but today we're here to talk about this as well. Can you tell us a bit about this, from your experience?
Well, I'll give you a live demonstration in a few minutes of the tool that we use, where we can model a lot of those different parts. So it probably become apparent when I do the live demonstration, if everything works okay.
Yeah, great.
So we can demonstrate it then.
Yeah, okay.
So, shall I go for that now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll have to stand up. So this is the perils of doing a live demonstration. So what I'll do is I'm just going to log into the platform. So what I'll show you here is a tool that we've developed. And it was a tool that we developed to use internally and also externally with our engagement with retailers, processors, and also with farmers as well. And we call it the Greenhouse Gas What If tool. And I did prepare this yesterday so that I wouldn't have to do it all today. But what this is it's a platform, it's a tool that we've developed using the IPCC 2019 calculations. And it does a life cycle assessment this is set up for an individual cow that you define, and you can change things on this cow to be able to show the effect of the changes that you've made. And we use this that you could model at cow level, so I can show you the effects. For instance, if you cull a cow at 3 years instead of 2 years, or, and this is how we probably use it more often, you would use it at as a way of modeling a farm individually. So you'd say, well, this is a proxy for how the farm is performing. Or you can even cluster together groups of farms if you know the performance around those farms on things like calving interval, production, and you can model across a whole supply chain, clustering it down to groups of farms to show the effects of certain interventions, like, for instance, the addition of a methane abatement additive. So I'll quickly take you through. I know I've only got a few minutes to do this. Normally it takes a while to go through. So I'll show you the bits that form the backbone of what we're doing. So we have to define, we're saying, right, this calf is born in, so this is the life cycle, the whole life cycle of an animal. So she's born in at 37 kilos. We're going to say in this case that she calves into the main herd at 27.8 months. We know that probably isn't the target, and the target should be closer to 24 months. And then she has 3 lactations of 410 days each. So again, the fertility is probably not what we want it to be. And then that's her done. She's finished, she's culled out of the herd. So that would be the basic profile of this cow, or you can extrapolate it up to a herd. And during that period, so during that whole life cycle, we need to add a little bit more detail, but not so much that it's extremely difficult to do on farm. So I've already put this in here, but we put in here the protein percentage and the amount of concentrate that the animal receives during its rearing period. So in this case, 16% ration So that's the whole ration, and averaging 2 kilograms a day from birth all the way through to when she calves in at 27.8 months. One of the other very important parts, of course, is what size is this cow going to be? And how much is she going to produce in these lactations? So here we've set a level. We said she's going to do 9,500 litres. We've already said she's going to achieve 3 lactations. So we have 9,500 litres done 3 times. And the butterfat is 4.2. And the protein is 3.3%. So overall, you get your fat and protein corrected milk production and your total milk solids. And then we also obviously need to put in some of the big inputs in the rearing of the heifer and also in the production of that milk. And one of those big inputs is going to be the amount of concentrate feed that is fed per litre of milk. So in this case, we're saying 0.3 kilograms of concentrate feed is going to be fed per litre. Okay, so then just to very quickly show you on the concentrate feed, because it's one of the areas of engagement we've had in the UK a lot, that if we do know that, we know that there's 0.3 kilograms of concentrate fed per litre of milk, because we've just defined that. So of those 0.3 kilograms, if we need to define it in more detail, what do we want to know? Well, we want to know the emissions intensity of that feed, so we can put it in here. And also, the final bit of the puzzle is, other than the concentrate feed, we're also going to be feeding fertilizer to the land, so we're going to be putting nitrogen on. So we look at the stocking density of the animals, which will have a big effect overall on the emissions intensity if we're using quite a lot of nitrogen. So here we're saying that there's nitrogen put on at 170 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare per year. So in summary, for this particular cow or herd, if we want to extrapolate it up, we could say that the enteric fermentation is 36.5%, so that's obviously the methane. The feed and forage input is big, that's 25%, but we can count down on the smaller components after that in the pie chart. Of that, how much comes from the heifer period, so the young stock, and how much comes from when they were adults. So you can break it down like that. Then the reason we call it the what-if tool is because then you can say, well, what if something is done better? So for instance, if we said we increase the longevity of the herd, they do 1 more lactation. So instead of doing 3 lactations, we say, okay, she does 4. Did you notice there the emissions intensity changed from 1.31 down to 1.18? So if you had a herd where you got 1 more lactation out of that herd, then you're going to decrease the emissions intensity of that milk production down from 1.31, in this case, to 1.18. If you said, well, let's say the fertility's better. We know if you have better fertility, you have the same amount of cows producing more milk, or you could have more milk produced by less cows. So let's say we improve the fertility and we get it down to 365 days for the calving interval. Again, we've dropped the emissions intensity. One of the other big ones as well will be age at first calving. So instead of 27.8, which is still, I'm embarrassed to say, in the UK, still very common. Higher than that is often seen as well. But if we did improve that and we got it down to where we want it to be, which would be 24 months or maybe even beyond if you can get the animals big enough. So let's say we drop it to 24 months. We've got our emissions intensity down as well. We can then look at modeling other parts. So if you could increase production but keep the feed rate the same, what would that do? Well, if we introduce 10,500 litres, we can see what that would do. That would get us down to just over 1 kilogram of CO2 per kilogram of fat and protein corrected milk, or if we were to improve the embedded emissions of the feed. So here, instead of 850, we managed to get it down to 650. We're now probably heading below a kilo. Yeah, just under a kilo, I think. So there's lots of other things I could show you. I know we don't have time, and I can take questions individually later if you want, but that really is, to answer your question a long way, that is really what we're trying to do on engagement with the farmers.
Well, thank you so much for this very in detail demonstration of the modeling of such system. It's a what-if system, yeah, for Methane Connect. You called it here, but the map of ag is really working, yeah, in the UK or beyond UK as well.
Well, we set up in the UK, and we've got offices in New Zealand and Australia. So at the moment, it's being predominantly Anglophone, even though we have done work in France and in the Netherlands as well. But yeah.
Very, very nice. So my next question is already answered. It's about how much difference can change in feed and grass and the total system at the farm level can make, but you can see it from the numbers here, and we can discuss this later on during the Q&A session. Another question is addressed to Pauline. Yeah, do you have a mic? Yeah. Yeah. Pauline, we see a lot of numbers here. Do you track any indicators within your line of work?
We do track indicators, but most of them are very common, like age at first calving and the number of lactation at culling, that are really key point to better carbon footprint and methane emissions. So that's very classical. And we do track indicators mainly on economical stuff like, you know, gross margin and feed cost and stuff like that. But on the technical side of things, we do work a lot with fatty acid profiles of milk, which help us get better insight in how the ration work for the cows and how to improve it. And through that, we can work on methane as well. So that would be the main indicators that I work with the farmers I work every day with.
Right. Thank you so much. Although not as much as James, but you follow a lot of indicators there to make assumptions about the use of such feed. Okay, another question for Samuel. I will need the translation kits in advance. Yeah, because none of these are. Yeah, okay. Sorry, my mistake. So, Samuel, you're also using some tools, right, for the APBO? Yeah, yeah. You hear? Okay. So, can you tell us? Are you satisfied with those tools? How do they work? Do they require sometimes some extra work or not? What is your experience with this in your line of work?
Donc effectivement, aujourd'hui, on mesure le méthane en lien avec la plateforme EcoSense. En temps de travail, c'est assez simple. Excusez-moi. Une journée par mois, enfin une fois par mois, nous devons transmettre la production laitière du jour de l'analyse des acides gras. Et l'équation se fait automatiquement sur la plateforme EcoSense, qui nous donne le résultat, et ensuite on peut individuellement regarder en fonction des rations qu'on a données à nos vaches les émissions, si elles sont plus ou moins élevées. Ça permet de tirer des conclusions. En termes de travail, non, ça reste abordable.
Okay, nice to hear about that. So I've heard that, okay, I will wait a sec. Okay, I've heard that also all those data you track every month are stored somewhere and are also available to the dairy companies that are paying you for milk. Is that right?
Donc effectivement, c'est des données qui appartiennent à notre organisation de producteurs. Et nous envoyons des données consolidées à la laiterie qui, elle, en fait, comme on est rémunéré au point en fonction de nos notes de méthane, c'est elle qui retransmet après sur la paye de lait en fonction de nos points le montant en euros que ça correspond.
Well, this is very well organized within Valorex and everything. I want to ask about your opinion. Is this a main motivation, or at least a motivation to other farmers to join this ABPO? I'm not sure I really understand how this works, but I'm guessing. So what is your opinion on this and your experience so far?
Pour l'instant, recruter d'autres agriculteurs, ce n'est pas possible parce qu'aujourd'hui, on produit suffisamment en fonction des besoins de notre laiterie. Mais par contre, en tirer des bonnes idées pour d'autres organisations de producteurs, ça, je le souhaite à tout le monde, aux agriculteurs de prendre en main cette démarche-là, de s'organiser pour pouvoir mieux négocier vis-à-vis de leur laiterie, c'est très bien, d'être force de proposition. Donc voilà.
Well, it seems like a good way to go, yeah, indeed. Well, thank you, Samuel. Well, we see that motivation is here. I think this helps a lot when trying to make that switch in the mindset of the producers. I believe that it's there, because when you tell them they will make a profit and their herd will be healthier and produce more milk, I'm saying this over and over again, but that's the point here. You can make that switch in the mindset to think more climate friendly in terms of production, because that in the end leads to more positive things for the farmer, for the farmers themselves, and then the environment and all the things beyond. Okay, so yeah, we reached to the end. Wow. Okay. Yeah, the time flies when you have good talks. So I want one final sentence. First, I want it from the advisors. So Pauline, Solveig, and James. You work with the farmers every day. Can you tell us in one sentence what really drives them to think about, to change their way of, not say life, but more dairy producers, that's their life, but to make that switch with them, and what are the main constraints or challenges during this?
Should I start? Yeah. So mainly it's a financial incentive. To be fair, there are bosses and they need to run their company well and get money from it. So that's really the main focus. And then beyond that, we've got lots of technical things that we can still improve. And those technical improvements often goes hand in hand with all the problems of methane emission, gas emission, and other ecological issues. So that's really to work on bettering those kinds of levers, and naturally it's gonna follow for the environmental footprint. So that's really to work hand in hand with both of these aspects. One must not lead the other. It's just a win-win stuff.
Right. Thank you.
I totally agree with Pauline just said. You cannot go in a farm and say, okay, we have to work on methane. It won't work with farmers. You have to explain that farmers will follow, decrease if you work on feed efficiency, health, reproduction, productivity, etc., etc. And it must be simple and easy for the farmer, not a lot of more work to do so. And with such solution, we can improve a lot of things. Methane, of course, but if you improve the rest of the farm health, as James showed with what you've told, you can improve the carbon footprint of the farm. And I think it's a good way to present things.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, I think it was easy in the old days when we were talking around herd health, because farmers always want to know how to improve the health of their herd. When it transformed more into sustainability, I think it was important that we kept the conversation very much the same, that it wasn't suddenly we're talking about this new thing that was to do with emissions, because effectively it was exactly the same as we were doing before. It was improving herd health and it was improving efficiency. So I think to engage the farmers, it just has to pay for them to do it. Otherwise, they won't do it. And why should they do it, really? There's loads of people who won't give up their car when they go to the supermarket. Why should the farmers have to give something up? So I could see that talking the language around improving things from a herd health perspective, a feed efficiency perspective, you could say, well, this will save you money. What we're seeing now as well is there's quite a few of the retailers are also putting in payment matrices in place. It isn't usually very much. It's usually maybe 1 pence, maybe 1.5 pence maximum if you hit quite a few criteria. So some farmers will say it's not worth hitting the criteria, but at least it is leading the thought towards, well, this is what does improve sustainability. It probably improves your profitability as well, and you will get some more money for it. But ultimately, of course, it is money.
It is money. Even 1 pence is money, especially if you have a lot of animals there who are producing. So it can be a lot of money in the end. But the most important thing I see here is that perception of farmers of this methane solutions that are not only about methane, but about everything else. So I want to ask our farmers today, all three of them, do you agree? And what kind of challenges do you see further on or that are not addressed so far? So just in 1 or 2 sentences, you don't have to be so in detail. Maybe to give one to Joe first, and then we will, fight with those thingies.
I think all three of them have just described it pretty well. If you make it that we're going to be more profitable, we're going to make our cows more healthy, that it's going to end up, the end product is where everybody else wants to be. And we're not going to do it. We're not saying we're not going to do it if it's not incentivized, as in either from a milk producer, which we are at the moment through Arla, but it helps, even if it's so small. But the end product is what we all want, and it's the same thing for everybody. We do want to reduce methane, and if we can become more profitable at the same time, it's a win-win.
Thank you.
Je pense également que chaque agriculteur peut aussi se sentir responsable juste en tant que citoyen. Et il ne faut pas hésiter à faire ses propres essais sur les exploitations pour se rendre compte qu'il n'y a rien de mieux que le terrain pour faire des propres essais et se rendre compte des résultats. Et effectivement, on peut se rendre compte qu'il y a des améliorations, notamment des fois sur la reproduction, sur la santé des animaux, et ça c'est très bien. Il ne faut pas hésiter aussi à s'organiser en groupe, en producteurs, pour être force de proposition face aux industriels et pouvoir négocier ces données et puis ensuite avoir des retours sur investissement. Et donc voilà.
Very well said. Okay.
Ja, ik kan enkel maar de collega's bijtreden. We merkten duidelijk als we die koe centraal stelden, dat we die gezondheid van die koe hebben eerst prioritair gesteld. En dan hebben we gezien dat die productie volgt. En als we dan zien welke voordelen die we dan halen met zowel onze voetafdruk, CO2, methaanuitstoot, zijn we echt fier. Dus als je gewoon die koe op een natuurlijke manier benadert, dat je al die andere voordelen erbij haalt. Dat is gewoon een en verhaal, het is geen of-verhaal. En dat vind ik echt heel leuk om dat te mogen ervaren.
Well, thank you all very much for very, let's say, fruitful discussion today. And I hope the audience enjoyed all those experiences for both farmers and advisors. And I hope, Olivia, there's time for questions. And I see there are many questions. Great. Okay. First one goes to Samuel. Okay. Yeah, thank you. What improvements have been measured on farms since the new specifications? Okay, you hear me now?
Pouvez répéter, s'il vous plaît.
Okay. What improvements have been measured on farms since the new specifications?
Donc déjà, on s'est rendu compte que quand on a mis en place le nouveau cahier des charges, enfin, notamment sur les mesures du méthane et sur les leviers qui ont été mis en place en 1er juin 2025, il y a eu 95% de nos adhérents qui ont répondu à au moins un levier. Donc on s'est rendu compte qu'il y avait quand même un intérêt pour pour ce nouveau cahier des charges. Il y a eu encore davantage d'agriculteurs à arrêter tout ce qui est utilisation d'huile de palme ou de soja qui était déjà non OGM, mais qui ont arrêté le soja. Et la volonté de réimplanter des prairies, de semer des protéagineux, d'améliorer l'autonomie des exploitations. Donc voilà, un intérêt pour ça, et ce aussi grâce à l'aide financière.
Thank you, Samuel. Another question is for James. James, you mentioned data are collected in connection with retailers. How are they valorizing them, and any bonds done with the consumers into their final message?
Yeah, the data is a very important part of it. And really, the data has been, since the beginning of the retailer schemes, and also the schemes like Joe is on with Arla, that we're very involved with as well, there's been a requirement for the farmers to be part of that. If they want to be part of that scheme, they have to give permission to be able to get their data. And that has been a requirement for the retailer schemes going back for probably 15 years. And it's been something that at first was very hotly debated. The farmers didn't like it. But as time went on, it's become less and less of a problem. But I think it is really important, because otherwise you cannot get proper numbers to be able to, if you are going to pay the farmers some money for improving these things, you obviously have to be able to measure them. And if you can't measure them without proper data, you're sometimes rewarding the wrong farmers. So the data side is the farmers have to give their permission. There's very strict agreements in place about who the data can be shared with, which are very strictly adhered to. So there's no sharing of data to people it shouldn't be shared with. But they're used in the models that we would be using to be able to form the KPIs, to be able to inform sometimes the payment models. But yeah, absolutely the data is completely key, because otherwise there's too much argument about I deserve it, no I deserve it. No, it's proven who should have it. So it has to be on the basis of very good data.
Yeah, right, because of the objectivity and everything, yeah,
yes,
related
absolutely.
to that. Yeah, okay. We have... Do we have enough time for more questions? Great. Okay. Okay, the most recent ones are here. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. For Samuel again, because there are many French producers here probably. I'm just kidding. Okay. How much bonus, euro per ton of milk, do you get with all the actions you have implemented? How do you evaluate the profit?
Donc en moyenne, depuis la mise en place, on est à peu près à 16,50 € des 1000 litres de gain. Et donc ça varie de 0, ceux qui n'ont rien coché, jusqu'à 48 € celui qui touche le plus. Donc voilà.
Thank you. Okay, this is probably a question for all farmers. It is important to simulate improvements on carbon footprint, but the most important question for farmers is how. This probably is a statement or a question? Statement. This is a statement. Okay, sorry about that. It looked like a statement, but you're right. Yeah. Another question for James. James, how do all the emissions from other related animals on farm feed into milk carbon footprint? Okay. Or is the footprint just limited to milking cows?
It is just limited to the dairy cows. So it would be the dairy cows, obviously the ones in milk, plus the dry cows, plus the followers, so the animals that obviously will be in the dairy herd. one of the bits of data that makes it easier to do that is that we have permission to access the British Cattle Movement Service. And so all the European countries have an inventory, a national database, and that will tell you very accurately every day of the year how many animals are on that farm and how many of them are likely to be. Sometimes you might have breeds that you don't expect to be milking, but usually how many of those animals will be beef and how many of them will be dairy. And the beef is done completely separately as a separate part of the business. It makes it slightly difficult sometimes we also have permission to go to the feed companies and ask the feed companies what feed was sent to a particular farm over a year. Sometimes there's slight difficulties if you have a group of beef animals on there as well, how much of that feed went to beef and how much of it went to dairy. It's sort of one of those things that we have to make an informed choice on what do you think is the right amount that went one way or the other. But yes, it's dairy only.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this one I assume goes to Solveig and maybe Samuel as well. I'm not sure, but Solveig try to answer it. Does feeding linseed increase manure methane? Very good question. I know you know the answer, but yeah.
We didn't make proper study about this, but I don't think so. To make a quick answer, and maybe Samuel, you want to complete?
Non, non du tout. Je n'ai pas analysé les effluents depuis que j'utilise du lin.
You think no? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I assumed. Okay, James again. Okay, this one is about LCA, life cycle assessment, I assume. Yeah. Is Farmetrics a platform inspired by LCA? That's one part of the question. Two more coming. What database do you use in your models? And how uncertain is your model, and how is this uncertainty calculated?
Yeah, so the model is based on the IPCC 2019 calculations. One of the things is we've got what we call a high-resolution model, and the high-resolution model and the what-if model are slightly different. So for a high-resolution model, we would be looking to know how many animals were on the farm that day, what size they were, whether they were milking, how fast they were growing, etc. And we sum all the methane emissions individually over 365 days. So that's in the high-resolution model. For that model, to some extent, the data has to be a bit flattened because we have to look at, because we're extrapolating up from one animal to the life cycle of an entire herd, or sometimes greater than a herd, than one herd anyway. We have to be able to, as I say, flatten the data a little bit. So in a way, that is a compromise to be able to do things that you can model easily in front of a group of farmers to get pretty close to the right answer. But if you were doing something that was for, let's say we were doing the carbon footprint in for a milk processor or something, where they wanted a very accurate figure for a year across 200 farms, we would use a high-res model rather than that model. We can feed into the what-if tool, that model, using data that we've collected from the high-resolution model, but they are slightly different, even though they do give very similar answers. But yeah, that is a slight compromise on the amount of resolution that we would use otherwise, but it just makes it so difficult to come up with an answer in front of farmers quite quickly.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, next question. Yeah, okay. I was skipping some answers, but I see the most interesting ones are going up. I didn't know that before Olivia enlightened me. Okay. This one is from Peter, I presume. Do you have incentives to reduce methane in Belgium?
had dat eerst niet begrepen. Welke maatregelen? Nogmaals, ja, als je die koe teruggroeien centraal stelt, als je die koe die gezondheid, die koe respecteert als een herkauwer, als je dat op rasgebaseerd rantsoen, denk dat we daar heel grote voordelen mee kunnen halen. Als we die soja uit die rantsoenen halen. Want wij hebben vorig jaar, om er een voorbeeld geven, meegedaan aan een wedstrijd topmest. Als we zien hoe die ammoniakemissie en die mest veel lager is dan mijn collega's, dat is echt onbegrijpelijk welk resultaat je kunt behalen. Ik weet niet of dat juist antwoord op de vraag is. We krijgen, als wij methaanreducerende maatregelen toepassen, krijgen we subsidie van de overheid. Maar ik vind het wel wraakroepend, want de natuurlijke producten worden minder gesubsidieerd dan de chemische producten. Want voor de geëxtrudeerd lijnzaad kunnen we per koe per dag 10 cent krijgen. En bijvoorbeeld voor de bovaar is dat 0,18 cent. Bij mij wringt dat toch ergens dat natuurlijk product minder wordt gesubsidieerd dan het chemisch. En dat proberen we nu toch ook wel aan de overheid duidelijk te maken van jongens, probeer toch meer de natuurlijke weg op te gaan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So this one, Samuel. Yeah. Okay. Can you tell us more about the solution proposed by EcoSense in regard compared to what capture does? Capture. Cap 2.0. Okay.
Alors le cap 2ER, c'est l'image de l'exploitation, c'est son empreinte carbone. Donc on fait un diagnostic en prenant en compte tout ce qui est donc la productivité, le nombre de vaches, la productivité du lait, l'âge au vélage des génisses, aussi l'autonomie des fourrages, la quantité de fourrage produit pour produire le lait, les quantités d'engrais achetés, de fuel, GNR, je ne sais pas comment vous allez traduire ça, l'électricité, tout ce qui est consommé par l'exploitation. Ça prend également en compte les méthodes de travail, tout ce qui est épandage d'effluents, ça prend en compte les mètres linéaires de haies, ça prend en compte les rendements des cultures. Ça donne l'image, ça donne des émissions en kilos de CO2. Donc voilà, à un instant T. Et donc ensuite, c'est libre à l'éleveur d'améliorer ou pas certains leviers sur son exploitation. Et donc il a un coaching pour ça. En fait, il a des axes d'amélioration qui lui sont donnés, qu'il choisit ou non. Et au bout des 5 ans, on refait la même chose. On remet à jour le cap 2ER. Donc chez nous, c'est un cap 2ER de niveau 2. Il y a une formation aussi sur le climat qui a été faite par nos adhérents. Et donc au bout des 5 ans, on refait la même photo de l'exploitation et on voit si ça a amélioré son empreinte carbone. Malheureusement, comme c'est une photo, quand vous faites la mise à jour au bout des 5 ans, vous tombez sur une mauvaise année, par exemple à cause d'aléas climatiques ou d'aléas sanitaires, que vous allez avoir des récoltes de fourrage de moins bonne qualité ou alors des animaux qui ont moins bien fonctionné en reproduction, vous pouvez vous trouver, malgré des choses qui ont été faites sur l'exploitation, avec un résultat qui est moins bon. C'est un peu l'inconvénient du procédé.
Well, thank you, Samuel. It makes more clear now what is in that calculation and how this tool works. Of course, we cannot predict everything, so that those years with different results are not something that we can influence that much. Okay, next question to Joe. Hi, Joe. How are farmers in the UK being incentivized to reduce carbon footprint, and what pressure are UK farmers under to reduce methane?
As an Arla farmer, it's part of our contracts that we do try to reduce everything. We're measured through farm metrics and through the Arla portal. It gives yourself your own goal to try and get it down, to try and make improvements. There isn't a massive pressure. It's more trying to get in front of what's going to come to try and help sell our product, as obviously make the consumer think that we are trying to reduce our methane and try and help the environment.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, I'm going through questions, looking at the most relevant ones. Okay, Samuel. Are APBO farmers involved in label BAS carbon certification? I hope I read it right.
Donc il y a eu, oui, des appels à projets qui ont été faits. Malheureusement, ça n'avance pas très vite. C'est compliqué de trouver des fonds pour les organismes qui s'occupent de la gestion de ces points carbone qui pourraient être obtenus par les agriculteurs. À l'origine, on devait obtenir des tickets carbone qui devaient être vendus, rachetés par des entreprises qui en ont besoin. Et aujourd'hui, il y a très peu d'acheteurs et il n'y a pas les fonds suffisants pour faire tourner les organismes qui s'occupent de cette gestion-là.
Okay, makes sense. I'm just trying to guess. Okay. It's about grass, so it must be for Pauline. Okay. What are good practices to grow grass? What is the best profile of grass silage to have low methane emissions? Good question.
Good question. Do we have 2 hours? So good grass management is mainly to get young and leafy grasses and to get them to be high sugar, high protein, low fiber, like we talked previously. The more younger and the first cut is always higher in omega-3 concentration, so it's always the best as well. Of course, the best results for methane are on the first cut and on grass that is grazed. Silage, it's a bit more difficult to preserve those omega-3, so there are a lot of work on the when we are cutting the grass to get it better and how to preserve it in silage, so to add some preservatives. And we talked about probiotics directly fed to the cattle, but we can also work with probiotic to help preserve omega-3 in grass silage as well. So that's something that is essential to get the best of it and to mitigate methane emission with that. And another thing that we didn't discuss is that in lots of natural perennial grassland that we do get in France and in most parts of Europe as well, even if they are decreasing, we've got lots of herbs and forbs and legumes that would be rich in tannins and in saponins. Those are natural compounds that will help regulate methane emission. So that's always to find the balance between feed efficiency and methane regulation, but it has also a lot of positive outputs as well, parasitic load regulation as well, those kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things to balance in, for example, multi-sward, temporary pasture, 3 to 5 years. We can add chicory, we can add ripgrass, and those have also beneficial beneficial things for the biodiversity and also for the environment as well. So yeah, it's a multi-facet stuff.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work. I see a lot of optimization in terms of botanical composition and the optimizing the the
Yeah.
you know, the harvest of plants actually.
Yeah, and one thing that we've not discussed is genetic, and genetic will make the link between the cattle and the grass, because currently there are a lot of work on cows' genetic to help them produce less methane. So that's a lever that we didn't talk about, and that is very interesting as well. In most grass-based systems, there's also a lever that we discussed a bit with James. It's the size of the cows. In grass-based system, we tend to have smaller cows that will walk better fit, and they are being able to graze better. And there are some studies that shows that at the same with the same ration, mostly grass-based, a bigger cow will produce same milk but more methane. So there is that, and then the selection on methane, enteric methane production as well directly, and the genetic is a key driver in cattle, but it is also a key driver for grasses, and there are a lot of work to do with seed producers and seed merchants to work towards cultivars that will increase the omega-3 rate and the drought resistance as well. So the genetic is really a key driver in both cows and grasses.
Thank you, Pauline. This really enlightens all of us here. So if you have any questions later on, yeah, go to Pauline. She really knows her stuff. Yeah. Okay. Last question. Oh, okay. Okay. I will go up again. Okay. One moment, please. Some of these we've been through. Everyone's quiet. Okay, that's good. Okay, to Joe. Okay. Could you tell us more about methane monitoring using Visualize? And if you see correlations between methane and milk, do you see correlations between methane and feed efficiency?
I think this is more for the boffin that's sat over there that looks at my Visualac reports, to be honest. Visualac's a tool that we use. We don't look at it on a daily basis. We just look at it on a monthly, 3-4 monthly review to see where our production is, to see how it's affecting our methane production. And we benchmark off the top 10%. And currently, we're always on the better side. If Philip wants to discuss all this, he's more than welcome.
Thank you, Joe. Since this was our last question, I wish to thank to all of the participants today. You were really great, and I think this was very lovely to hear from all the crew, all the people there in the audience. And also I want to thank the translators as well, because they're doing a job that we cannot understand each other that much without them. Thank you all very much once again, and we can continue with the program, or what is next?